I'm Jamie Hess, and welcome to your 5-part mini course on radical wellness. I help peak performers earn more and stress less by learning to optimize their energy and rewire their habits. I started my career in public relations, climbed the corporate ladder, and was struggling with an extreme case of duality as I was also an addict. I hit a low point where I lost my career and almost my life, and it gave me the gift of desperation. I turned my life around, doubled down on learning everything I could about fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, and I became a wellness expert. I was able to leave that corporate job after 17 years, shattered that glass ceiling, and became a 7-figure earning entrepreneur. And today I help other people do the same. So what that really means is I work with countless people all across different sectors, many high-performing people that from the outside, they look amazing. They have it all together. I'll give you one example. My client, Sarah, she's a CMO. Sarah from the outside, you would think was crushing it. But here she is. She's worked her way up in her career. And secretly, behind the scenes, everything else in Sarah's life is falling apart. She has that imposter syndrome. She's gained about 25 pounds because her personal life is just suffering. She's not prioritizing the right things. She's lost all sense of structure. And she doesn't really know what's up because from the outside, she's crushing it. But inside, she's slowly dying and miserable and just not happy. And if that is the case, what is the point? I'll give you a quick story. My 7-year-old son, Mason, came to me the other day and he was just bonkers. He had been off the wall with his behavior, as 7-year-olds often are. I said to him, dude, what is going on? You know this isn't the right way to act, my friend. He looked at me with probably the most astute observation I'd ever heard. He said, Mom, you know that drone you got me? Imagine I was flying it and I wanted to bring it down. So I pressed the button, but it just kept going. It glitched. He said, Mom, sometimes I feel like that drone. What this kid was telling me was that he was running on autopilot, acting out despite his best intentions. And don't we all feel like that sometimes? You're up there, right? You're cruising, you're at an altitude, but one propeller is kind of twisty. Maybe it's flapping, they're veering off to the left. You're not really at the controls of your life. So back to Sarah. Sarah is that exact person. She's running on autopilot. And imagine if she was back at the controls. Imagine if she was not just surviving, but thriving. Imagine if she got that imposter syndrome under control and gained an unshakable confidence. Imagine if she got a hold of her time management and her energy management. And imagine if she lost that weight. So when she walked into a room, she felt her best. Well, that's what I taught Sarah to do by coaching her. And that's what I'm here to help you with today. So if you want to break out of that autopilot, you do it one section of your life at a time and you shine up each section until you put them back together and you're running shiny and new. So if you're ready, buckle up. Let's get started. Project number 1, fire yourself and make a critical hire. Stop acting in a vacuum and thinking you can do everything yourself. You can't and you don't have to. Let me tell you a story. When I first left my corporate job, I had been working on my side hustle, which is my career as an influencer, media personality, wellness expert, and podcaster for about 18 months. I had been working nights and weekends, building it up until my side hustle became a profitable full hustle and I was able to make the leap. The whole time at the end of my corporate career, I was thinking, man, imagine if I had just this job to do. I would just lift everything off my vision board. In 90 days, I would have 6 podcasts, and I would be speaking on stages, and I would write a book, and I would be coaching the world. Guess what happened? I left that corporate job, had all the time in the world, and guess how many of those projects from my vision board came to fruition in that first 90 days? A big, fat goose egg. Why? Because in my corporate life, I had had a boss, structure, KPIs, deliverables. I craved that. So I realized if you don't have a boss, you better hire one, honey. And I did. And I hired a life and executive and business coach. And she helped me prioritize, put things in a 3, 6, 9-month plan. And all of a sudden, I was off to the races. Now, I have to imagine if you're watching this, you are a savvy professional. You are somebody who, if given a project or a task, you probably stay up late to do it. You probably do everything in your power to produce best-in-class work. So why wouldn't you take the same care, the same timelines, benchmarks of success, setting yourself up with deliverables to get you across the finish line for the most important project of your life, which is Project You. So your first exercise is to do what I call making your big ask. Now, this is simply where you ask somebody in your hyperlocal environment, a husband, a partner, best friend, a family member, for help completing something that has been just confounding you for a long time, right? It's maybe something that's been on your to do list. It's something that you are not very good at. Perhaps you are bad at time management. You're scrolling on Instagram and showing up to Zoom meetings 5 minutes late. You keep making a fitness regimen for yourself, but it never quite gets across the finish line. Keep telling yourself you're going to meal prep, but you just can't make yourself get off the couch at night and do it. You're having trouble getting to work on time in the morning because you just don't have a solid morning routine and your mornings feel like a total mess. You have to understand that change is made in the micro moments. And it might sound basic to ask for help with one thing, but I always tell people, want to know the best place to start when approaching radical wellness? Somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And you got to start small and pick one thing to get the rest of your life in order. I'll give you a good example. I'm working with a client right now. She's been in publishing for 14 years. She's extremely successful. She's ready to lift off to the next level of her career. She's also stuck in a romantic relationship that kind of is going nowhere. She's got a lot of big things. You know what her task was for this week? Her bathroom, which should be her sanctuary for her evening routine, especially, is a mess. She's a beautiful woman. She's 53 years old, and she walks into this bathroom every night that should be make her feel like a goop goddess, right? And instead, she's like tripping over Pantene shampoo bottles, and it's just a complete and total mess. It's just like you want to dress for the job that you want, not for the job that you have. Her first task this week was to have accountability to me to get in there and get that bathroom cleaned up. So it is a place where she walks into in the evening and it makes her feel like the goddess that she is. I also have her going in there at night and completing a PM routine, which includes not only her skincare, lighting incense, and doing a financial abundance affirmation exercise. It's a simple 30 minutes that I've structured into her evening routine in an environment that will now feel clean and fresh and abundant. And it's going to make her feel like a completely different person because sometimes your physical space is a manifestation of the chaos that's in your brain. So take that as an example of something that could be a small start to a larger solution. Whatever the case may be, I want you to pull out your phone right now before you go on to the next lesson in this exercise. Send that text to the person that you love and ask for help. Put a time cap on it. It's for 7 days, and you're going to ask them to hold you accountable to maintain this sense of commitment to whatever that first thing is for the next 7 days. Do it now. Project number 2, think bigger. So I ran my first half marathon several years ago, and running that half marathon actually taught me a lot about business. It taught me to raise my eye line from my feet to the horizon. Oftentimes when you're running, you're staring at your feet and you're just in your head. This sucks. This hurts. This is awful. When is it over? All of a sudden, about midway through this first race of mine, I raised my sight line from the ground to the trees. My entire psyche changed. All of a sudden, I saw in my periphery beautiful humans around me. I was running alongside them. I had 2 legs on which to run. There was fresh air and sunshine on my face, and it was a beautiful day. My entire energy shifted. When we allow ourselves to think bigger, everything changes. Here's where we're going to confront your imposter syndrome. I'll tell you a story about a guy. Doesn't really know how to use email. He didn't even use a cell phone. He's terrible at organization. Never even has his calendar together. You'd think this guy is a real loser, right? That guy is Bill Clinton, and he ended up being our friggin' president. Let me tell you another story about a model who everybody told she was too heavy to possibly break into the modeling industry. This is before plus size models were a thing. It was before the body positivity movement had taken hold. And this girl, against all odds, kept trudging forward because she knew to her core that she was not going to fail. That model was Ashley Graham. This girl broke forward and was on the cover of Vogue. I actually saw her talk at a Cosmopolitan event, the magazine, and she sat with Tyra Banks. And Tyra Banks said to her, "And Ashley, what did I tell you after you got that cover?" And Ashley said, "Tyra, you told me to think even bigger." My point is this. Some of the most important and influential figures in our life are the people that we look to because they turn their setbacks into their set-ups. I remember a time that I did this quite recently. It was about 4.5 years ago. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a Tuesday, if I remember correctly. I was sitting in my car. I was actually parked in a parking lot in the back seat of my car. I had a face full of makeup. It was hot, man. The makeup was starting to drip down my cheek. What else do I remember about that day? Oh, yeah, my boobs were out. My boobs were out because they were connected to a breast pump because I had just had an emergency C-section about 2 weeks before. At this time, I had just left that corporate job in pursuit of this next part of my life as an influencer, a media personality, wellness expert. The TV part of my career was just taking off, though. And I got a call from my agent about a week prior to this moment. And she had said, Jamie, I know you just had a baby, but I have an audition of a lifetime for you. Could you be in Pennsylvania on Tuesday morning to audition to be the new face of QVC's new activewear brand? How could I say no, right? So that's how I found myself in this car with my boobs out, pumping for my life before I went into this audition. Now, when I walked into that audition, I could have done two things. I could have walked in there, looked at all of these other women around me who were gorgeous, who had clearly been working on their craft for the last several weeks, whereas I was being milked like a cow, was probably 10 or 15 pounds heavier because I just had a baby and had a serious case of mom brain. And I could have felt like a victim or a victor. I did two things when I walked into that room. I actually walked into the ladies' room and I did Amy Cuddy's power pose. Are y'all familiar? If not, look it up. Amy Cuddy, one of the most well-watched TED Talks of all time. Amy shows that nonverbal cues can actually trick your brain into feeling more confident. So I did a physical nonverbal cue to trick myself into feeling good. And I recited 5 of my favorite affirmations. You see, if you want killer biceps, you got to do bicep curls, right? If you want unshakable confidence, you have to do mental exercises. If you want main character energy, you got to practice being that main character. So your exercise for this section is as follows. These are affirmations. Lest you think they're woo-woo, there's huge data, neuroscientific data on how affirmations repeated daily have the power to actually change our neural pathways and make us feel more confident. Take these 5 affirmations and say them out loud to yourself in a mirror. Then take 5 note cards, write the affirmations down on those 5 note cards and put them in your pocketbook. You're going to repeat these affirmations at the same time to yourself every day for the next 7 days. I promise you're going to feel different if only you'll do it. Will you take the challenge? The next part of your mini course, I like to call New Me. Who dis? It's all about aligning your assets. Here's the deal. We all have what I like to call our corporate culture within. You know what a corporate culture is, right? It's like the energetic center of an office. You walk into an office and you immediately know if it's a place you want to be and want to do business, or if it kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies. It either has like, the paint chipping off the wall and there's like people hunched over their desks with their headphones on. No one's really talking. There's papers stacked up everywhere. Or you walk into an office with like a cute neon sign, a big open airy floor plan. There's collaboration. Maybe you smell that premium coffee from the break room. It feels yummy and you want to vibe there. Your vibe attracts your tribe. It's also how you strive. So your corporate culture, your internal corporate culture is yours to optimize. And especially today in the world of solopreneurship or the world of so many of us just trying to create a personal professional brand, think about your corporate culture within as something that you should be focused on. So just like that corporate culture is the energetic heartbeat of an organization, you have a core energy center that drives you and it's yours to optimize. Change is made in the micro moments and small choices matter. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So if your inbox is always full, that's a vote, my friend. Are you chronically 5 minutes late to meetings? That's another vote. Avoiding difficult conversations with a team member? Pop that in the ballot box. Skipped your workout to stay in bed? Ooh, that is a vote with a residual bounce back because all of a sudden you had that lazy moment in the morning and then you feel like poop. And then all of a sudden you're eating fries later instead of a salad. You have to understand that these things are wellness. If you think wellness is just about diet and exercise, or if you have that old idea that wellness is like some woo-woo thing with matcha lattes and crystals, you have really the wrong idea about wellness. Wellness is simply to feel well. I don't know about you, but I feel well when I'm on time. I feel well when I wake up in the morning and have a plan and I put my head on the pillow at night with integrity, knowing I stuck to that plan with a little bit of accountability support along the way to help me get there. Your exercise for this section is I simply want you to put together a day in the life. I want you to right now write what a typical day in your life looks like And then next to it, write what you wish it to become. That includes morning routine, your workflow, your evening routine, and somewhere in there, I want some sort of a break from the screen and what I like to call a hot girl walk. Something in the middle of the day that gets you reset, maybe has a little dose of mindfulness, and that's it. We're not trying to change Rome in a day. We're trying to get your morning, your evening, and a little part in between more aligned so you feel more well balanced and have a framework off which to hang your perfectly energized day. This is actually going to free you up from overthinking things. Routines are defined as a sequence of actions that are regularly followed, and they form habits. The Harvard Business Review found that 92% of highly productive people have a structured morning routine. They explained it's not really about doing more things, but doing things in a more efficient manner. By following a structured, repetitive routine, we actually give our minds a break from making constant decisions, saving us mental energy and willpower. And that is energy we can put elsewhere, like challenging projects, learning new things, self-care, and other obligations. James Clear, of course, the famous author of Atomic Habits, he said goals are good for setting direction, but systems are good for making progress. Charles Duhigg, who wrote The Power of Habit, explains, willpower isn't just a skill, it's a muscle. So one beneficial habit will commonly lead to another, creating a positive feedback loop and an overall empowering routine. So Duhigg actually explained, as people strengthen that willpower muscle in one area of their lives, say in the gym or their money management, that strength is spilled over into how they ate or how hard they worked. Look, if you read the Forbes, billionaires list on what all billionaires do, almost all of them have a succinct morning routine that they follow like clockwork. Most of them get up early, they have a healthy breakfast or they juice, they meditate, they have some sort of physical exercise, and they follow it like clockwork. So they don't have to think about it too much, but it happens every day. They all credit it with being a critical component of their success. Either you run the day or the day runs you. Part 4, hack your hustle muscle. I like to call this section avatars and aspects, because what I have my clients do is write down 3 avatars, meaning 3 people in business who they highly respect, people who they look up to, or it's 3 people in life, right? Depending on what you're working on, I want you to think of 3 people who highly embody the vibe that you're going for. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it is a CEO that you always read their articles in Forbes or watch them in the news. Maybe it's somebody in your friend or family circle that you really look up to and admire. I want you to write those 3 people down now. Now that you've done that, I want you to think about each one of those people independently. Think of the first person. I want you to write down 3 things that are so attractive about that person to you. It could be they are so amazing at networking, and I always feel like I'm shy or I don't really know what to say. I'm terrible at small talk. Perhaps they're big risk takers and you're just risk adverse. Maybe they're just really, really good with money and you have a money block. You think, oh, I just wasn't brought up that way. I could never be good with money. Or my parents always said, we can't afford that. There's not enough. So I don't have a concept of financial abundance as being part of my ethos. Whatever the thing is, I want you to write down 3 things from each of those people you admire and that you would want to echo. Here's your exercise. Pick one person. You're only going to start with one. You're going to take those 3 things that you admire about that person. You're going to pick one thing in each of those categories that you could do, push yourself out of your comfort zone and mirror their vibe. If they are really good networkers and they're the man, they know everybody, right? It's like, oh, I can always call Chuck because Chuck always knows the guy and had the contact. Be Chuck, right? How did Chuck do that? Maybe he's going to cocktail parties. Maybe he's going to masterminds. Maybe he's going to networking events. Maybe he's part of clubs. Maybe you should call Chuck if he's somebody in your circle and say, hey, Chuck, could I meet you for coffee? Could I have an informational with you? I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you do what you do. I really admire it. I think it's cool. I'd like to get better at it myself. You're going to push yourself to do 3 things this week that get you into the zone of the person that you admire. And that brings us naturally into part 5 of this mini course, which I like to call, we can only keep what we have by giving it away. Now, this is the part where I am going to talk to you about being a mentor and having a mentor. Chuck could be your mentor. Maybe somebody from that last exercise is the person you would like to ask to mentor you, or maybe you have a mentor. Having a mentor is great. Could be somebody that you just really respect and try to be around a little more. to really just absorb their energy. Having a mentor is so important, but being a mentor is equally as important. I have mentored young women in my field my entire life. And I'll tell you why it is so important to me. As somebody who was active in spiritual recovery circles ever since I got sober all those years ago, I know the value of having a sponsor and being a sponsor. If you've ever been around those communities, you may be familiar with that format. But here's why sponsorship is so important. They always say service keeps you sober. Now, why does service keep you sober? When you are in your head and you are stuck in all of the minutia, all of the crap that just drives us crazy on any given day, reaching out your hand and being of service to somebody else is the quickest way to get you out of that thought loop. But here's what else. By working with that person, it keeps you closer to the problem solution lexicon. When I was about 5-6 years sober, I had really gotten my life back. I had, a big job. And I remember my sponsees saying, man, I can't believe you take my call every single day and we talk every single day. Like, you have this big job, you have all these responsibilities. And they were talking about things like getting out of the homeless shelter and getting food stamps, because that's often what people are dealing with in early moments of their recovery. I was so grateful because that kept it green to me. It reminded me that I was only an arm's length away from a drink. Now, similarly, studies show that the higher up you go in your organization, the less empathy you have. So whether you are somebody in middle management or you are the CEO, if you are disconnected from the current problems of your workplace, of your organization, if you are not constantly on the ground being nimble, you're at a disadvantage. Incidentally, something else we know from recent studies shows us that innovation is actually down across the board. And the reason is because there's so much available at our fingertips that, especially younger generations, they don't have to be as innovative. They don't have to problem solve as quickly, as nimbly. Do you want to lose that fine-tuned skill? The closer you can keep yourself to the problem solution lexicon, the better off you're going to be. We only keep what we have by giving it away, by paying it forward, by sharing my best practices and good ideas. That is an inspiration boomerang, because I am reminded of the solution. And that will always be as helpful to me as it is to the other person. My goal is to make sure that you feel engaged and happy with your life. A recent Gallup poll showed that 67% of the workforce felt not engaged. So many people feel hopelessly stuck, especially in this new normal. Repetitive thoughts, unhealthy habits, and self-doubt can just cause you to spiral. And there's a better way, and it starts one thing at a time. That is what radical wellness is. It sounds like a big macro idea, but what it really comes down to is paying attention to the little things until it gives you a framework to shine up the big things. Bottom line, failing to prioritize your wellness and your engagement with life will cause a breakdown of the business and your personal brand at a molecular level. You're better than that. You've got this. All it takes is a little help, structure, support, and accountability. I'm here for you. I'd love to work more with you. If you want to learn more about me, I'm at meetjamiehess.com, or you can find me on Instagram, NYC FitFam. My DMs are always open.